1. I didn't own a single pair of jeans. Strange, I know, because what 16-year-old girl doesn't have at least one pair? Maybe with a rip in the knee or a heart doodled across the thigh in Sharpie. It wasn't that I disliked the way they looked, and it had nothing to do with the fact that my mother had been a fashion designer, especially considering she used jeans in her collections all the time. But I was a firm believer in the phrase, dress to impress, and today, I was going to need to make an impression. Jackie? I heard Catherine call from somewhere inside the apartment. The taxi is here. Just a minute! I scooped a piece of paper off my desk. Laptop, charger, mouse, I muttered, reading off the rest of the checklist. Opening my satchel, I searched for my possessions to make sure they were safely tucked inside. Check, check, check! I whispered when my fingers brushed against all three items. With a bright red pen, I marked an X next to each of them on my list. There was a knock on my bedroom door. You ready, honey? Catherine asked, poking her head inside. She was a tall woman in her late 40s, with golden hair that was cut into a mom bob and starting to gray. I think so, I told her, but my voice cracked, revealing otherwise. My gaze snapped down to my feet because I didn't want to see the look in her eyes. The sympathetic one I'd seen on everyone's faces since the funeral. I'll give you a moment, I heard her say. When the door clicked shut, I smoothed down my skirt as I glanced in the mirror. My long dark curls were straightened and tied back with a blue ribbon like always, not a single strand out of place. The collar on my blouse was crooked, and I fidgeted with it until my reflection was seamless. I pursed my lips in annoyance at the purple circles under my eyes, but there was nothing I could do to fix the lack of sleep that was causing them. Sighing, I took one last look around my room. Even though my entire checklist was crossed off, I didn't know when I would be returning, and I didn't want to forget anything important. The space was strangely empty, since most of my possessions were on a moving truck bound for Colorado. It had taken me a week to pack it all, but Catherine helped me with the huge task. Clothing had filled most of the boxes, but there were also my collection of Shakespeare plays and the teacups my sister, Lucy, and I had collected from every country we'd ever visited. As I glanced around, I knew I was stalling. With my organizational skills, there was no way I'd forget anything. The real issue was that I didn't want to leave New York, not one bit. But I didn't have a say in the matter, so with reluctance, I grabbed my carry-on. Catherine was waiting for me out in the hall, one small suitcase sitting at her feet. Have everything? She asked, and I nodded my head. All right, let's get going then. She led the way through the living room and toward the front door, and I trailed slowly behind her, running my hands over the furniture in an attempt to memorize every last detail of my home. It was hard, which was strange considering I'd lived here my entire life. The white sheets thrown over the furniture to prevent dust from frosting the fabric were like solid walls, holding my recollections at bay. We stepped out of the apartment in silence, and Catherine paused to lock the door. Would you like to look after the key? She asked. I had my own set tucked in my suitcase, but I reached out and took the small silver piece of metal from her hands. Unfastening my mother's locket, I let the key slip down the delicate chain so it could rest against my chest, right next to my heart. We sat on the plane in silence. I was trying hard to forget that I was currently moving farther and farther away from my home, and I refused to let myself cry. For the first month after the accident, I never left my bed. Then came the day where I miraculously pulled myself out from underneath my comforter and got dressed. Since then, I'd promised myself I would be strong and composed. I didn't want to go back to the weak, hollow person I'd become, and that wasn't going to change now. Instead, I focused my attention on Catherine as she clenched and unclenched the armrest, her knuckles going white each time she did. I only knew a few things about the woman sitting next to me. First was that she was my mother's childhood friend. They grew up in New York and attended Hawks boarding school together, the same school my sister and I had been enrolled in. Back then, she was known as Catherine Green, which brought me to the second thing I knew about her. During college, she met George Walter, The two married and moved to Colorado to start a horse ranch, George's lifelong dream. Finally, the third and most noteworthy piece of information I knew about Catherine. She was my new guardian. Apparently, I'd met her when I was little, but it was so long ago I couldn't remember. Catherine Walter was a complete stranger to me. Afraid of flying? I asked as she let out a deep breath. Honestly, the woman looked like she was going to be sick. No, but to be completely truthful, I am a bit nervous about, well, taking you home, she said. I felt my shoulders tense up. Was she afraid I was going to go off the deep end? I could assure her that wasn't going to happen, not if I wanted to get into Princeton. Uncle Richard must have said something to her, something about me not being okay, even though I was perfectly fine. Catherine caught my look and quickly added, "Oh no, not because of you, honey. I know you're a good kid." Then why? Catherine's smile was sympathetic. Jackie, honey, did I ever tell you I have 12 kids? No, I thought as my mouth dropped open. That definitely wasn't mentioned. When he decided I was moving to Colorado, Uncle Richard did say something about Catherine having kids. But 12? He'd conveniently left that little detail out. 12 kids. Catherine's household must be stuck permanently in a state of chaos. Why would anyone even want to have 12 children? I could feel the tiny wings of panic fluttering inside my chest. Stop overreacting, I told myself. After taking a few deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, I pulled out a notebook and pen. I needed to find out as much as I could about the family I was going to live with, so I could be prepared. Sitting up in my seat, I asked Catherine to tell me about her kids, and she agreed enthusiastically. My oldest is Will, she began, and I started writing. The Walter boys. Will is 21. He's in his final semester at the local community college and is engaged to his high school sweetheart. Cole is 17. He's a senior in high school and a talented auto mechanic. Danny is 17. He's also a senior in high school and the president of the drama club. He's Cole's fraternal twin. Isaac is 16. He's a junior in high school and is obsessed with girls. He's Catherine's nephew. Alex is 16. He's a sophomore in high school and plays way too many video games. Lee is 15. He's a sophomore in high school and a skater. He's also Catherine's nephew. Nathan is 14. He's a freshman in high school. Anna, a musician. Jack and Jordan are 12. They're in 7th grade and twins. They believe they will be the next Steven Spielberg. Anna always have a video camera with them. Parker is 9. He's in 4th grade. He looks innocent but loves tackle football. Zach and Benny are 5 and are in kindergarten. They're twins and little monsters with potty mouths. I looked over what I wrote, and my stomach dropped. This was a joke, right? Catherine didn't just have 12 kids, but 12 boys. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about the male species. I went to a private school for girls. How was I ever going to survive living in a house full of boys? Didn't they speak their own language or something? As soon as the plane landed, Uncle Richard was going to hear an earful from me. Knowing him, he was probably wrapped up in an important board meeting and wouldn't be able to take my call. But I couldn't believe him. Not only was he pawning me off on some woman I didn't know, but he also was dumping me with a pack of boys. He said he was doing what was best for me, especially since he was never home. But over the past 3 months, I'd gotten the feeling he didn't feel comfortable being a parent. Richard wasn't my real uncle, but I'd known him since I was a little girl. He was my dad's college roommate, and after graduating, they became business partners. Every year on my birthday, he would bring me a bag of my favorite jelly beans and a card with $50 in it. In January, Richard became my guardian, and to make the situation more bearable for me, he moved into the penthouse on the Upper East Side where my family lived. At first, it was weird with him in the house, but he kept to himself in the spare bedroom, and soon we fell into a comfortable routine. Normally, I only saw him at breakfast since he always worked late into the night, but last week, that all changed. When I came home from school, the dinner table was set with what must have been his best attempt at a home-cooked meal. Then he told me I was moving to Colorado. I don't get why you're making me leave, I told him after 10 minutes of arguing. I explained this already, Jackie, he said, his face pained as if this decision was ripping him away from the only home he'd ever known and not me. Your school therapist is worried about you. She called today because she doesn't think you're coping well. First of all, I never wanted to see that therapist, I argued, slamming my fork on the table. Secondly, how can she even suggest I'm not coping well? My grades are excellent, if not better than first semester. You've done a fine job in school, Jackie, he said. I could hear the butt coming. However, she thinks you're throwing yourself into your work as a way to avoid facing your problems. My only problem is that she has no clue who I am. Come on, Uncle Richard. You know me. I've always been studious and hardworking. That's what it means to be a Howard. Jackie, you've joined 3 new clubs since the start of the semester. Don't you think you're spreading yourself a bit thin? Did you know Sarah Yolden received a scholarship to go study an endangered species of plants in Brazil over the summer? I asked instead. No, but she got to publish her findings in a science magazine. She's also first chair for violin and got to perform in Carnegie Hall. How am I supposed to compete with that? I can't just have good grades if I want to get into Princeton, I told him coolly. My application needs to be impressive. I'm building it up. And I understand that, but I also think a change of scenery might be beneficial for you. The Walters are wonderful people and are happy to take you in. A change of scenery is relaxing on the beach for a week, I exclaimed, rocketing out of my seat. Leaning over the table, I glared at Uncle Richard. This is cruel. You're sending me across the country. He sighed. I know you don't understand right now, Jackie, but I promise this is a good thing. You'll see. So far, I still didn't understand. The closer we got to Colorado, the more nervous I became. And no matter how many times I told myself that things would be fine, I didn't believe it. I chewed my lip until it was raw, worrying over how difficult it would be for me to fit into the Walters' lives. When the plane landed, Catherine and I made our way through the airport to find her husband. Now, I told the kids last week that you're moving in, so they know you're coming, she chattered as we pushed through the crowds. I have a room for you as well, but I haven't been able to clean it out yet, so… Oh, George! George, over here! Catherine jumped up and down, waving to a tall man in his early 50s. I could tell Mr. Walter was a few years older than his wife because most of his hair and scruff were completely gray, and age lines were starting to streak across his forehead. He was wearing a red and black flannel shirt with jeans, heavy work boots, and a cowboy hat. When we reached him, he pulled Catherine into a hug and stroked her hair. It reminded me of my parents, and I cringed and turned away. I missed you, he told her. She pecked him on the cheek. I missed you too. Pulling away, she turned to me. George, dear, she said, taking his hand. This is Jackie Howard. Jackie, this is my husband. George looked uncomfortable as he sized me up. After all, how exactly do you greet someone who just lost her entire family? Nice to meet you. We're happy to have you. Instead, George held out his free hand for me to grasp and muttered a quick hello. Then he turned back to Catherine. Let's get the luggage and go home.